Hi everyone, this is our Extreme Ownership Mashup Group wrap-up. We're going to be talking about our overall impression of the book and how the concepts relate to our professional and personal life. My name is Emanai. I'm an Indiana State DAT student, and I will let my colleagues introduce themselves.
Hello, my name is Ethan Roberts. I'm also a DAT student at ISU.
My name is Jamie Nickander, also a DAT student.
I'm Carolyn Hampton, and I'm also a DAT student.
Sorry, Carolyn. Hi, I'm Rachel Kirkpatrick. I'm also a DAT student at Indiana State.
My name is Nicholas Merritt, and I'm a doctorate in athletic training student at Indiana State University.
My name is Melissa Erickson. I'm also a doctorate of athletic training student at Indiana State.
So I was trying to come up with a theme that kind of encompassed all of the chapters together, because I think it obviously comes down to extreme ownership, but there was a lot of sub-themes in there. I think the biggest thing that I took from the book was just having an open mind to adopt some of these principles. You know, there's a couple times in the book where I didn't feel connected with the chapter. I didn't feel like that was my personality or something that I could see myself doing or something that I bought into. But I think it boils down to having the open mind to even attempt to implement some of these principles. But what do you guys think? Was there any overall themes that it kind of boiled down to for you guys?
I think for me, the biggest thing as far as, we had all these different principles like believe and cover and move and all that stuff, but I think every story that he told in the book, I feel like boiled down to communication for me. And so I think that to me is an overall theme. I think communication solves a lot of leadership problems. It solves a lot of problems you have as a follower. So I think it goes both ways. But overall, I think better communication and inclusion of everybody up and down the chain of command was, so I think that can relate to any of us, was something that I think all of us can easily take and implement.
I think communicating the why as well, because I think a lot of times, sometimes we think that people know why we're doing or why we need them to do this, but a lot of times that's not the case. And I think for me that tied in a lot of concepts like simple and clear and kind of that communication that Jamie was just talking about as well.
So basically for me, I feel like communication was also an overlying thing, but also in terms of that is that how everyone had like a role, no matter what level you rank in terms of like the leadership or where you are in the company. Someone had a responsibility, and like the main leader had to, provide trust and everything. And that also boils down to communication as well. So that's kind of like the main two things that I got from it.
And I think for me, one of the biggest things that I got was the main point of excuses. And if you make an excuse, there's really no one to back it up other than yourself. And then if you're the one making the excuse, then, there really is no reason for it or plan. And it's kind of like, if you make an excuse, you're only putting like not really like the issue on yourself, but really the whole cause of the problem, to be not focused on the goal or the intent. And I always think back to some of the stories that were in the book where it was up to the leader to lead the group, or it was up to the leader to determine where the group is going to go. And if the leader was making haphazard decisions or not basically focusing on the goal and the point, and instead focusing on problems that were being made or problems or issues that were coming up, then it wouldn't have been a successful, cohesive group. So it's more taking charge for the group and not just, going through the motion and, not showing up or not, basically not doing your job. Do your job and don't make excuses.
I think for me, kind of what Emma, you said, and Caroline, what you said about communication and things like that. I think for me, the book just kind of gave me the tools that I need to be a leader, and then it's really up to me to decide what type of things that I want to use in my clinical practice. So I felt like there were some chapters in the book that were kind of necessarily not really fitting for me. So using the ones that I feel like were going to work for me in my own clinical practice, and then also realizing what I want in a good leader. So my supervisor, what I want my boss to be like, or what kind of characteristics that I want them to have, and how they kind of lead.
So I think we've talked a lot about how this book impacted our clinical practice, but did anybody have any personal life examples that they wanted to talk about?
Yeah, because I did the reflection for this week, and the one that really came to my mind for me was discipline equals freedom. And so I think most people know I'm training for my first half marathon ever right now. And it takes up a lot of time. Like, I went from probably working out 0 to 2 times a week to 5 to 6 times a week. And so it's just, I think when I first got into this program, I was so hyper focused on school and clinical practice that, like, I came home and that's all I did, and I was probably miserable. And I had this concept that I did not have the time. And I was like, this is the only thing I have the time to do. So I just wasn't taking care of myself. I wasn't eating well. I wasn't exercising. Just in general, wasn't particularly happy. And so I think I did a little health coaching. A friend does health coaching. And so I was a guinea pig patient for her, client for her, I guess. And so we went through this whole 3-month program of completely revamping my mindset about prioritizing my own health. And so I started to get up earlier, and I do homework at night, which I didn't previously do. So it's a little inconvenient, but the whole waking up early to get things done, I feel like I can really relate to now. And now it's like I have all the time in the world. So time was definitely a perceived barrier for me as far as health goes. And so I feel like me now and me a year ago are 2 completely different things, because I'm having the discipline that I didn't have before.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not running any marathons or anything. Go you, Jamie. But I think the same exact thing. It's something that I really been working on for the past year, and definitely, I think it's definitely been supported ever since we've been reading this book. But starting to exercise regularly and getting up early, I've completely shifted. I'm the person that like stayed up until like midnight or 2 o'clock in the morning just because I was a night owl, and I never thought it would change. And now going to bed at a decent hour, getting up early and exercising, but also with like later, and then I would be stuck with all my homework at the weekend. And now I've changed my weekly goal to get my homework done on Friday instead of Sunday. So I've changed that deadline in my mind, but now it gives me that freedom on the weekend to do whatever I want and actually relax and have that separation, basically.
I think my personal example came from the decisiveness among uncertainty, I think it was called, because I really tried to come into this semester staying engaged with the material and not focusing on May and graduation and getting a job, because I thought that would consume me and I would completely be wrapped up in focusing on the job search that I would forget that there's still coursework and I still have to finish my research project. So deciding that I was going to stay engaged with the material and focus on my classes amid the uncertainty of not having a job, which is obviously in the back of my mind, but not at the forefront, because I trust myself, and I'm sure you guys do, that something will work out. But I think that was the biggest thing, that I chose to stay in the moment, or at least try to stay in the moment and engage with the material without completely getting consumed with the next step and what's coming on in the summer or in May.
I feel like I've tried, like what Emma was saying, but to apply them like on an everyday basis. So like I have specific examples of stuff that happened, but if I think about it, like I feel like this semester I've done a really good job just trying to, like, as we read through this book, things come up that, okay, practice or life or things like that. But like doing that and then also sharing those concepts with whether it be our coworkers or like you guys are peers, we all understand the concepts. But so like one situation that happened was one of my coworkers was kind of frustrated with a chiropractor that he's been working with, and they work in the same clinic because like the goals and the outcomes are of the patients are not where they should be because they weren't working together. So I thought it was really interesting to kind of like share some of the concepts of this book to how he could kind of manage and assess the situation and handle it. But that was kind of a really cool thing to see as well.
So I think this second, go ahead, Nico.
Sorry, I didn't know how to work his fancy keyboard, so I couldn't turn on the mic. Technological issues. But anyway, I think overall of this book, reading it is kind of, for me, I got out of it is taking initiative just through like my personality. I'm kind of like quiet and just kind of put things off to like, oh, it will happen when it will happen, or just not, not be full force mentioning things that don't need to be mentioned. Just in personal life too, it's like, whatever, move on. But I feel like this book, if there's something that I'm truly passionate about, I need to step up and talk about it, or at least mention it to someone or bring up my ideas, whether it's, through life or just in general of like at work or just even in my personal life. If I want to go out to eat somewhere that I really want to go out to eat somewhere, I really should just go to that place, express my opinion. I don't know. I just thought that up in my head, but I feel like that's something I need to be more vocal in my opinions. I feel like, or more vocal in my ideas. So, as well as I feel like another thing is I need to get more discipline. Though that's something I'm guilty on with a healthy lifestyle. So, those are my thoughts.
And then for me, it's kind of more of not really the opposite of Melissa's, but more of like a more thought process version of hers. Instead of just voicing my opinion and being done with it, kind of sticking it, I always hear the term like sticking it to the man, so like kind of making it happen, but within reason. So it's like I have this goal and I have this plan, and if it doesn't happen or my expectations aren't met, then I feel like I completely failed. And it's kind of more of, okay, well, I might not have completely failed, but there's something that I can learn from the situation to make it better the next time. But then also, like I'm not going to, I'm going to take ownership of what happened, that it was my fault if it did fail, but I'm not going to take it as failure. I'm going to take it as a learning experience that I can apply to hold myself accountable and to hold my peers accountable. So it's kind of like being focused on the goal and not necessarily the process. I always focus on the process and how to get it done and the way I want it done. But really, if I get there in the end and I didn't hit all of my deadlines the way I wanted to, either way, it still works out.
So Nico, I don't know which example you were going to talk about today as your problem. So we were tasked with basically coming up with a problem that we typically blame somebody else for, but we are going to take strides to take ownership of. So did you want to continue talking about that or talk about the problem you're having?
Sure. So I guess one of the problems I'm having, and it kind of relates to Jamie and training and such. If I have two, I guess, so like clinical and life. So in life, I'm training for a full marathon, same weekend that she's going, and there's some days where I plan out the time and I have everything ready, and then just like life happens and I have to run 7 miles instead of 9 because it rains, or I'm like not in the mood, or I didn't eat right that day, so I just didn't have energy, or a bunch of random things that could come up. And then I beat myself up for it. And I'm like, okay, well, I said I was going to do this and then I didn't do it. And then, I make it to the weekend and it might be a warmer day, or I got a lot of sleep or something like that. But then I do what I want to do on that day. And I'm like, well, okay, everything's fine. So I beat myself up for a couple days, but then I'm still realizing, even though I'm not getting exactly what I wanted in terms of training, I'm still getting in the main points that I wanted to do, because my long run is the most important day of the week and everything else is just kind of with it and keeping in shape. So as long as I get the long run in and everything else is all right and I get the speed work in, everything's fine. So, and that kind of relates to doing schoolwork as well, or finishing up my manuscript that I finished last January, and we've been writing it for a while. But getting deadlines in, and I'm behind on one of my deadlines, but that doesn't mean I'm not going to finish in the time period that I want. And that's kind of similar to patient practice and working with others and setting up a goal plan. So you tell your patient, okay, we're going to do these certain things, and maybe you get a setback. Maybe you're working with them and you really want to tell them a date because there's a high chance that you can make it, but you don't want to say anything because then they could be set back. But then you collaborate with other people, you get an idea. So in general, with all of that, it's kind of like when you make expectations, don't make them the ultimatum. Know that you can change things, fail, learn from failure, and move on.
Oh, okay, it's my turn. So, one of the things in my clinical practice is that, for me, it's the communication part. I put blame on, again, others for not communicating instead of myself. Like, I know there's like a section of the book that said about communication, and basically the fact that people didn't know something to like the boss, but at the same time, well, you as a leader, even though you're not the boss, you should ask questions to clarify things. And so I just need to keep on like asking those questions of stuff that I didn't know. And especially with my coaches, they don't communicate with me about anything. So I need to talk to them more about things and take the initiative no matter what, if I annoy them or not. Also, discipline versus freedom. For me lately, I've been like, I don't know, I've been falling asleep and not even doing homework at night because I'm just so tired. So I need to be more disciplined and stay up. But actually, the most recent one was last night. But then I disciplined myself to wake up at 4:30 as saying, hey, you're getting stuff done. So I got some stuff done. But that's two things I really need to work on, is discipline and speaking up about communication, making sure that I make the effort to start the communication.
One thing that I kind of blame people in my clinical practice, or kind of in my setting, I know some of us can relate to this, but it is opening duties. So it's been kind of a struggle, especially this past semester, with opening duties. And so obviously putting blame on somebody that doesn't show up when they're scheduled to show up and do what they're supposed to do, yeah, obviously that's pretty easy and it's pretty straightforward. But I never confronted individuals that would open. So I feel like part of it is my fault for not confronting them, because they may have not known that they had to open up that morning. So that's just something that I can work on in the future.
I think I have something similar. I had this list of potential small problems I'm having, but I think the one that bothers me the most is simply that our staff does not prioritize cleanliness or organization. And that will drive me crazy faster than anything else will. And so I feel like I'm the only person who cleans tables when I leave every night, and who cleans the whirlpool when I come in, or even like just picking up a pair of scissors off a table that I just got done using. Like it would sit there for 2 hours if I didn't pick it up. And like that just makes me lose my mind. And I actually created a checklist, like a cleaning list in Excel, and printed it off last year. So I had like daily duties, weekly and monthly, and absolutely nobody uses it. And so like I thought this was like a super good idea. But bottom line is I'm still having an issue a year later. And so I think it's pretty true that I have to figure out how I can play a role in fixing that. I think that I've really casually mentioned it to the people I work with, students included, like, hey, we need to be doing this. Hey, we need to be doing this. And I will physically do it. But I think having a more straightforward conversation about why that's important and potentially how it's causing stress in my work environment could potentially help that. So I just think I need to be more direct, first of all, rather than doing it myself, because I tend to do that. If something's bothering me, instead of saying, hey, can you guys help me with this? Like, I'm just going to do it myself. And I don't particularly think that's a very effective way to lead. So work on.
Mine also kind of goes back to communication. I've had, I won't say issues, but when we see each other's patients or get moved around from different gyms from time to time that we cover, one of the staff members that I work with, I don't get enough detail out of his doc. I can treat that patient, but it was not like a situation that I was confronting. It wasn't something that I even really told my director about at the time. Like, I would just end up calling him or emailing him ahead of time to get the information that I needed before I was going to form that treatment plan for the day or game goals. But that's something that I think just as a team we need to work through, but also to confront, because it's not, he may not realize that his documentation is giving me nothing to go off of unless, like what Ethan said, I tell them that it's not helping me at all.
Mine's also with documentation. It goes with, well, for me, I'm on my own, so I don't really get the opportunity to blame anyone else. I typically will blame it on, just time or number of patients or things like that. So I've noticed, and something I've been working on past about a month or so, is really working on my documentation. And now that we've kind of moved into prevention, trying to document those a little bit better. So it just turns around to, I'm lazy and I need to make the time for it. And so that's definitely something that I'm trying to focus on right now.
Yeah, Rachel, I blame the patients for my problem too. I'm treating probably like 6 patients right now. I have a roster of 12 currently, so I don't have a lot of things going on, and all of the 6 of 12 are on some sort of maintenance prevention program. I don't have any acute injuries to catch up with, but that leads me to be completely content with being lazy and showing up and going through the motions, and I do not feel challenged right now at all. And it's easy to say, well, I don't have a lot of patients, or we're out of season, or not a lot of people are hurt, which is a good thing. But I need to take ownership and blame it on myself for not switching it up and not trying new things and not reflecting on the evidence and implementing some new prevention programs or new exercises, or trying new things with my student. So I think my biggest problem is I'm being content with, for lack of a better term, how easy my job is right now. And I don't want to get used to that and then get a new job in June or July and be completely overwhelmed because I went from literally 0 to 100. So I think it kind of ties in with yours, Rachel, blaming patients, blaming lack of patients, but really I could be doing a lot more to challenge myself. So with that, I think that was the last problem we're having. Does anybody have anything else they wanted to add? All right, well, thanks for a good chat and looking forward to the next one.